Now I'd like to introduce you guys to the head of development and acquisitions over at Flix. Please welcome Mr. Rick Bonn. How's it going? It's so good to see you. All right. Are you going to over here? Afraid? I don't bite. Not unless you make me really, really mad. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming tonight. It really is a big honor to have you here. And I know that we have a bunch of writers out in the audience today. How many writers do we have? Yeah, we've got some writers. Woohoo! So you oversee thousands and thousands of scripts, right? Millions of scripts all of the time. What is your advice to a writer before they even begin a script? What should they do before they even put pen to paper?
You know, the more that I am in my office processing these stories, the more I want to get out and say, you know, how big is your God? How big is your vision of yourself? And how big is your education in Hollywood history as far as what kind of stories are possible? Why do we even make movies in the first place? You know, are movies tiny little things we watch on a watch that we just kind of interrupt anytime we want? They're becoming that. But, you know, movies are huge. They're big. There's a part of the bigness of movies that we've always surrendered ourselves to. And yet the scripts that come across my desk daily are small and smaller and smallest. And so I find that there is no sacred and secular divide. And take everything that you dream and everything that you want and tell a story about that. I mean, we go through a lot of tragedies and griefs and sufferings in our life, but honestly, well, little hyperbole here, but I've probably read 30 scripts of a family member dying of cancer and finding the grace of God in that script. That is a valid story, but a lot of people are telling that story. And it's also, even if it has a grace at the end, you know, if you're going to tell that story because it's personal to you, tell it. But tell it with as much depth and specificity to your life, whether you're from Texas, you know, or wherever you're from. Dig deep into your life and make that so specific and so real and so personal that when I read it, knowing that I've read 40 other dying from cancer movies before you, I'm seized by the freshness of it and the originality of it. And that's what I wish people understood more of. I feel like I kind of wanted to ask that question earlier, like, how many of you are writers? And see how many of you raise your hands. How many of you are filmmakers? And then I wanted to brazenly say, you're not. None of you are writers, and none of you are filmmakers. What you are children of God. What you are heirs to the kingdom of God. Now, what you do to express that you're a child of God may be writing. What you do to express that you're an heir to this vast kingdom is maybe filmmaking, maybe dancing, maybe music. But it's not what you are. It's what you do. It's how you express what you are. And so I feel like if, you know, before all the I want to start in this biz, if we ever just thought, how do I start before I start? And I would say start before you start by claiming your identity as a child of God and going deep into that. I came out to Hollywood from Wheaton College, and my first job was with Hugh Hefner at Playboy in Chicago. And Wheaton College is famous for Billy Graham and, you know, all these holy, Jim and Elizabeth Elliott, so all these holy people. So my first job was Hugh Hefner, and Hugh Hefner actually got me to Hollywood. And I came out here and ended up working for Dick Clark. And it was great, had a lot of years of success. And then a really fallow period, and actually moved out of the industry for a long time. And part of that time was like, why am I not in the town that God called me to be in? Why am I not using the gifts he gave me? Did I just hear wrong? Was this whole question. And I got really depressed, actually. My wife, Shonda, is here in the front row. We were in the most beautiful place in the world, Cannon Beach, Oregon, which is on the coast west of Portland for many years. And finally, I got to a point where I just said, God, I can't take it here anymore. And I had a lot of friends in the industry pray around me. And one of my friends said, Rick, where you are is temporary, so memorize where you are. and celebrate it and know the details of it. Now, here's where I was. I was in 50 degrees, rainy, soggy, Oregon coast, windy, sitting outside a dilapidated Subway and Safeway with people who wore flannel shirts and were addicted to meth. Not all of them, but I mean, this is the kind of a logging community and a tourist community. This is where I was, and I started to reverse the script and say, okay, if my friend's right and I'm only here for a little bit, let me memorize where I am really. Like, how would I write these people? How would I, let me listen to them better. I'm not listening to them because I'm thinking, oh, I wish I was back where I want to be. You know, so part of that, what I say is before you start, you got to know you, and you got to know where you come from. I feel a lack of just personal specificity and passion in almost every script I read, you know. I don't want you to be a writer. I'm not interested in you as a writer coming to me with something that you think should have been written. I'm interested in you and you as a child of God and the fusion of those two things. I'm interested in what's unique about you and where you come from, how that's welded to your faith, and how that explodes into bigness of dreams and concepts and imagination. That's what I want. I don't want just a script that you think, oh, I'm a writer, so I have to write about this, or I'm writing in the faith genre, so I have to write about a kid dying, and blah, 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 blah. You know, I want, no, it's all right. That's what I want. I want the deep exploration of who you are, and along with that comes the deep exploration of who God is to you. I honestly feel like God had to take me to Oregon to show me how jealous and bitter I was. I mean, I was at Fuller Seminary before I left, and I actually had to stop subscribing to Variety, you know, Variety magazine, because I was so darn jealous every time I'd pick it up, because friends would be having success. And you know that point, at a certain point where you're like, okay, God, how come my friends are having success and I'm not? You know, maybe none of you are there yet, but I was there, and I started getting mad inside and jealous and bitter. And I didn't even realize that that was blocking my ability to be creative in him, to even tell the stories that he would want me to tell. And I think in my case, he had to take me away for years. Oh my gosh. I mean, I was able to, luckily, to work consulting, but we were up there for over a decade on the coast, while all my friends are still here making it big and becoming famous. And I wasn't sure I was ever going to come back. And in that process, it was me saying, okay, God, I'm done being here, but I know that you're not going to move me on until you and I get down to business. So what is it? What am I denying in myself? What do you want to teach me about myself? You know, what is it? Let's go. I mean, whatever it is, I want to deal with it, and I want to get through it, and I want to move past it. Because I don't want to be here the rest of my life. I want to be in the center of where you want me, and I want to be back there in my calling and my gifting. And he heard that cry, and he dealt with me. And so if you're stuck, if you ever find yourself stuck, or even if you're just kind of on the cusp, remember that it's you and all that God has made you and gifted you with. That's crucial. And then it's also your vision of him that's crucial. And I would just challenge you from a place of humility. If there's anything he's asked you to do that you haven't done, you get serious about it. And if there's anything that he's asked you to face in your own life or challenge in your own walk that you're like, you know, deal with it. Go there, deal with it, whether it's jealousy or bitterness or forgiveness or whatever it is, because there are big dreams in this room. And I believe that, having seen a couple generations come up in town. There are stories here to be birthed that can change lives. There are stories in you that you don't even know you have yet. And they won't come out until you have dealt with in your life the fullness of you and the fullness of God in your life, and combined those in an original, fresh, kind of big way.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's, oh, yeah. What in your mind pushes a script from maybe we'll look at this to an absolutely yes, that's what I want to see?
You know, it ain't hard. It just has to be darn good. And there aren't a lot of them. I mean, I processed 300 scripts last year. I'm going to go through 750 this year, and I'm not gonna see more than 12 that I love.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane. But that's the business also.
Yeah.
So you said whenever you got started, you weren't necessarily doing specifically what most people would say, quote unquote, Christian work. But now you're working with Flix. What's the difference between working for both the secular projects and then the faith-based projects?
Wow, that's a big question. Well, you know, Flix is really a beautiful place to work. You know, some of the things that Jim shared are things that are encouraged at Flix because it started out as a ministry. So we have a weekly devotion on Wednesdays, and we're able to bring in filmmakers for those devotions. So last week we had a Mormon filmmaker who used to work at Disney, who just wrote, produced, and directed a film that we released called The Stray. And he flew out, and he was part of devotions with us. And, you know, I was kind of embarrassed by it. I'm like, you know, if you want to come to devotions, we kind of sing these lame songs. And then we kind of, you know, because they're not all great. You know, I wish I could say it's great church, but we kind of just slide by. And but he came, and he was almost in tears when he went to lunch with me afterwards, because he told me about the kind of meetings he would have at Disney and the other companies that he had been at, and the kind of just refreshment of being able to acknowledge God in the same room with others, being able to share openly who you are and what you believe with people of like mind generates a kind of really cool energy. And so there's a lot of that at Flix that's really, really beautiful. And I didn't experience as much of that not working for Flix. It's also a challenge because Flix is the beginning of a genre that hasn't been accepted in Hollywood. Well, that's not really true, actually. I try to tell people that there have been faith movies forever in Hollywood. I mean, in the 50s, if you've ever seen The Robe, or if you've ever seen Heaven Knows, what is it, Mr. Allison? Have you guys ever seen that with Deborah Carr and Robert Mitchum? So he's a GI who gets washed up on a Japanese island, and Deborah Carr is a nun, and she's the only survivor on the island. And then they kind of can't get together, but really want to get together. And it's all gospel, and it's all grace, and yet it's a secular big studio movie, you know, made in the 50s. So Hollywood has kind of always done that. It just moved away for a while. Yeah. So in this kind of modern re-emerging of what they're calling the faith film, Flix is at the beginning of it, and it's only one tiny sliver of what that whole genre could be. And it happens to be a very kind of in-your-face, direct with the gospel, Jesus message at the end kind of movie, which only appeals to a small group of people. Mm-hmm. But there's so much more that can be done in that genre, and so much more that can come out of your imaginations and your faith than what we've seen so far. And so that's one of the challenges is trying to help them see what can be possible and still trying to do well what we do. So do your niche well, but grow your niche, and kind of make sure the community knows anything is possible within that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've really been seeing that a lot lately with films like, came out earlier this year, Case for Christ.
Yeah.
That was something that, it was the first time that I went on Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm like, a Christian film didn't get a rotten score? This is a miracle. And I saw the film, and it was like absolutely wonderful to see that, and it was just great to be able to see a chance for a Christian film to actually not necessarily just have to sit there and take 10 minutes just to say, now listen, everybody, this is the gospel of Jesus. You know, we get to just see a story and see how God has influenced people's lives, and that was really refreshing to see, so I love that going on.
Thank you for saying that. We worked really hard on that movie, and one of my mentors in the biz who's been in it for a long, long time and has made movies, in one of the early screenings, he turned to me and the director and the writer, and he said, "Congratulations, guys, you made a real movie." And that was very high praise, you know, that was...
Absolutely, and it's well deserved. That was a wonderful, wonderful film. And just a couple more questions going back to the script writing and things like that. What lands a script in the rejection pile like immediately? What's something that you see, you're just like, nope, I'm done with that?
Cancer.
Cancer. Oh, I believe that.
Improperly formatted.
Oh, yeah, I bet that's huge.
It's weird. You guys don't have that problem because you're in the business, but I get scripts from state prisoners in Indiana, and I get scripts from everybody all over the world. And part of my job is educating them and saying, listen, there's a reason scripts are formatted as they are. Follow that format, get final draft. I always send out, this is not the end-all, be-all book of script writing, but it's a good primer. It's called Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. And what it does do is it breaks down a 15-beat structure that helps a beginning screenwriter who isn't quite sure how to navigate the structure of a piece, of a film. And so I'm constantly educating people with those kind of things. But beyond that, it's surprising to me that I know so much about you as a writer after reading 5 pages of your script. I know more about you than you think I know about you. I know what you think of yourself. I know what you think of God. This is kind of generalized, so don't go too crazy on this. But I have an idea about these things. I have an idea of how educated you are in Hollywood and how experienced you are in your craft. I know this immediately in the first 5 pages. And so what I really want, all of you who are working on this stuff, double down, be great. I don't care I do care what you have to do to be great, but be great, be better. Go deeper into your craft, learn. One of the things I love about being in Hollywood and being a fan of films is I never stop learning. I'm always, have you guys seen these online courses, the master class? Yeah, no, so who gives classes on there? Aaron Sorkin and Marty Scorsese just announced one, and
I know Hans Zimmer's doing one for composing.
Oh, okay. James Patterson is a fiction writer. He gives one. Those are $90. I'm not working for them or anything, but I'm just saying there's opportunity to always be learning and gleaning from people who do it and do it well. Even coming to this event, kudos to all of you. Gosh, the stuff that Jim just gave us is gold, as far as it might have been hidden in comedy, but all that he said was very, very valuable. And so this is what you want to do. You want to take every opportunity to, I'm moving my hand too much, aren't I, Shonda? My wife's like, stop moving.
No, you're good,
yeah.
You're good.
So take every opportunity you can to learn and to be better, because I need you to be better. I need you to be better. I need better scripts. I need better writers. Flix has traditionally worked with non-guild writers because they made 30 films over 10 years with non-guild writers very cheaply. Now we've moved into $10 million features, so we're using guild writers now. And I want to be able to tell you that the guild writers are so much better than the non-guild writers. So far, not so. They might have more experience. I certainly enjoy working with them. They have more experience as professionals in the stuff, but I'm looking for great writing. And you don't have to be in the guild to be a great writer. And if you are in the guild, it doesn't mean you're a great writer. It just means you've been employed as a writer. And I'm not getting down on either group. I'm just saying whichever group you're in, you can be great, and it's up to you to learn to be great, and we need it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's something that's really been something that I feel like the Christian entertainment field is really starting to get now, but for the longest time, I'm always just like, God always calls us to be excellent in everything that we do. Then why do we look at something we're doing for a church or for a Christian project and say oh, it's not the big thing, so I don't put as much attention to it. But exactly what you're saying, we need to bring our A game to everything that we do.
Is this when you sing or when I sing? I'd like to end tonight with my version of a song from Les Mis. I'm so glad.
You didn't get singing lessons from Russell Crowe, did you?
Yes.
All
just
right.
kidding.
Well, last question I wanted to ask you. What would be
Make
your
it emotional, because we have like an underscore back here.
So what would your advice be to anyone who wants to get into the entertainment field?
You know, when I came out here, we had these towering giants who were in the industry before us, and some of you will know who I'm talking about. They would scowl down at us and say, "You're a fool to be in Hollywood unless it's the call of God in your life. Run for the hills." And
This music is adding a lot, by the way.
I appreciated that, but you know, the time that I've been here, I feel the flip of that. I feel like it's glorious to be in Hollywood, and I know that there's corruption. The Harvey Weinstein stuff has me grieving over the last 3 weeks of just the misuse of power and privilege in this industry and in other industries too. But I would say, you know, if God has called you to be here, armor up. You know, armor up with faith, armor up with joy, armor up with craft, and everything that they said tonight. Dream big, love more, dive deep into Jesus, because he's it. You know, he's your only source of power, your only source of strength. He's the only thing. I mean, he's the only agent you need, and that's not really true. You probably need another agent. But I'm just saying, and this is really true, it sounds cheesy, he can open every door you need opened. And he is opening doors right now that you're not even aware the fruit that they're going to bear 10 years from now. And I have countless stories of that in my life where I'm like, wait, you mean that connection there now suddenly 15 years from now makes a difference? And it does. And it's because Jesus had a hand on it then, and he has a hand on it now. So that's what I would say. Rejoice, be of good courage, and dive deep into your Lord and Savior.
Absolutely. I just wanted to give a big thank you. This was incredible. Give him one more big hand. Thank you so much. This was absolutely incredible.